Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everyone? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. And free agency now is 3 weeks in the books. So I am surprised, Adam, by some of the bigger names that remain out there. There are about 8 to 10 guys who've made a Pro Bowl or two or three and are still out there. We know the names, the Jarvis Landrys of the world, the Jadeveon Clowney, Steph Gilmore's, things like that. But this is really kind of, and Tyrann Mathieu, of course, is still out there as we record this. So we'll see what happens with that. But we start to get to that point now where we look at the Eagles, right? And we're going to assess kind of what they've done, but really more what they still need with just the draft a couple of weeks away. Because as we've seen the Eagles do for the last few years, they make a lot of value signings leading up to the draft and then even after the draft. So we'll go through some players that are available. We'll go through some positions that they will absolutely need to sign guys. Now, they probably won't be much more than 1 or 2 year deals, but they will be nothing more than what we call placeholders. But they are important signings nonetheless. In fact, the greatest placeholder in the history of placeholders might have been Patrick Robinson in 2017. Playing that slot corner position for the Eagles and helping them win a Super Bowl.
Who knew? Who knew?
Certainly not. Forget who knew at the time of signing. Who knew 2 weeks into training camp when he was getting? I remember. I think Marcus Robinson was. There were a couple of like really taller, slower receivers on the team. Maybe I'm thinking of Ronald Johnson. I don't know, but guys couldn't wait to get on the field to get matched up in drills with Patrick Robinson because everybody was burning him. We didn't think he was going to make the team or even make it out of OTAs, right? But he turned it around.
This is one of those at training camp. He was so bad for the first week and a half that, as you said, I'm like, wow. I mean, I get it. Patrick Robinson is not the player that most people thought he would be. He's an NFL player. But, geez, he was terrible. And you couldn't make it up. It's like all of a sudden he's like, did a 180. It was terrific. So yeah, look, you're right. So you definitely could do some things. So in their Super Bowl year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you mentioned this because I wanted to go back and look at some of the guys they signed. So after the draft, they signed LeGarrette Blount in middle of May, right? After the rookie camp.
Right.
So he came in. This is not really. So this is that they extended Jason Peters' contract a year, but they traded for Alan Barber or Alan Barber.
They traded him, not traded
traded
for
him.
him, right?
They traded him. Yeah, traded him to Denver. Right, traded him to Denver.
Mm-hmm.
So Denver acquired him, and they needed him. And then the big one, actually two of them in August, they brought in Corey Graham on a 1-year deal. He was
third safety. Yep.
Just to say big nickel, right? And then Ronald Darby was the big one where they fleeced Buffalo. Jordan Matthews did nothing for Buffalo, and then and it was also a 3rd-round pick. But Darby, look, you can say what you want about him, but he certainly helped them. They needed him.
Yeah,
so there are things you could do. You're absolutely right. There's things that you can do. And it's funny. I remember when they traded Barber to Denver. I remember texting his agent. I was like, "Hey, how do you say his name? Is it Barbary or Barber?" Because we never could figure. That was one of those it seemed to change.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, the funny thing is that you went to verify that on his last day as an Eagle instead of his first day as an Eagle. But
no, because I had to do it. I had to do an interview. I don't know what radio station.
Uh-huh.
And I always try to get the name. I feel bad when I mispronounce them. You do it the best you can. There have been some challenges over the years.
There's nothing more Philly than mispronouncing a name of an Eagle.
Right. We did, yeah. No, well, remember Jaquay Parker?
Yeah. Yep.
What was it? Juqua. We didn't know. The guy was claimed off waivers, I think, for the Titans, maybe.
Right. Juqua. We had no idea.
We didn't know. Right. Yeah. So, I hate to. Then the spelling always is a challenge because Alan Barber's Barbre. So anyway, this is.
Do you have any elephant books, Adam?
Yeah, I know that. I knew that was coming. That's a line from Fletch. It's one B or two? BABAR. 1 B or 2?
2 B's.
Yeah, but
Arnold Babar.
Yeah, right, exactly. I don't read any children's books.
So you threw me off. Oh yeah. So by the way, the hand-in-hand deal was by trading for Ronald Darby, right? Which the Eagles did. that enabled them to move Patrick Robinson to the slot because at that point he had been an outside corner. I want to say alongside the Goblin, green hair. What's his face?
Jordan Mills, huh? Was he?
Yeah. No, not Mills. Jordan. It was that. Why can't we think of his name? Jalen Mills. Jalen Mills.
Mills. Yeah, Jordan Mills is
Yeah.
tackle.
Jalen Mills, and then obviously the addition of Darby. And then they had Rasul Douglas also playing some outside, helped them move Patrick Robinson inside, and it was all greatness from there. So the Eagles will certainly make moves. We'll talk about them. We'll get into a little bit of the draft too, as we talk a little bit more about the prospects. I hope you're all catching our show, The Intel with Greg Cosell, where we've been just breaking down draft prospects. Well, Greg's been breaking down draft prospects for us. The first two parts were all based on pass catchers. We did the first tier of wide receivers 2 weeks ago, and then last week kind of that second tier wide receiver, second or third tier, and then also the tight ends. So a lot of good names. It's a very deep draft for talent there. As Greg has said, I don't think there's a player in this draft at either wide receiver or tight end that you can say is the next is, like a Jamar Chase like prospect or a TJ Hawkinson like prospect, not a top 10 guy, but the depth of both positions is really good. You can get, as Greg is saying, guys who can impact a team as a rookie from second round to third round, perhaps even early four, depending on where some guys go and what teams they come up with. So it's really important stuff. And Adam, I like that we're doing this with Greg. We've been doing it, starting free agency, because I went back and checked last 2 years. Well, ever since the start of ITB, we've kind of done our own preview of each position based on the intel we were getting. But now we kind of have Greg to do it, and then ITB can be more dedicated to the newsworthy stuff and not us, just breaking down prospects from what we heard from scouts, which we will do closer to the draft. But that's why we'll also do a draft show, and we'll have a lot more coverage from sources that we hear from on certain guys. Now it's still more of a newsworthy items and what the team is doing and the direction we're going type of material that we have.
Well, one thing I would mention, it is interesting though, when I talk to receivers coaches, they don't always agree with Greg. And as Greg says a lot, reasonable minds could disagree.
Mm-hmm.
They also have information Greg doesn't have. He doesn't have the character stuff.
Of course.
He doesn't know the way that they're
Medicals.
taught, where coaches have to ask those questions when they're talking to teams, college teams. And also
Right.
the scouts, as you know, and the personnel people have that information. So that's the big difference between Greg and the coaches. They have certain information that Greg wouldn't be privy to, but they all go through the tape, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, the medicals too. Greg doesn't have
Yeah.
access to medicals,
Yeah.
and that's a huge, as we saw with DK Metcalf a couple of years ago. I mean, that's a huge part of the evaluation that he kind of sets aside because he just does the tape. So anyway, well, the next Intel Greg Cosell will be out Wednesday of this week. I think we're doing a defensive. Did we agree on cornerbacks and safeties? Is he cool with that?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. In fact, kudos to Greg, because we had some questions like after the first receiver group. There were like, I don't know, 5 or 6 that people had asked about, and Greg happened to text us, "Hey, would you mind doing part 2? I think there's some more I want to talk about." And I'm like, "Yes, good job."
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we combined the two, so that worked well. And then this week's will drop Wednesday morning, right? Is it Pod first or YouTube? I can't remember.
Podcast platform first on Wednesday morning, then YouTube on Friday.
Okay, and corner and safety, yeah, and this is it. Ironically, these are the two positions that the Eagles need the most, really, other than receiver. But they did no matter what they say, they have to do something significant at corner. Now safety, they'll never make you happy. I don't know.
I told a friend this past week that if the Eagles drafted a safety or a linebacker in the first round this year, even if they made 3 picks, which I don't think they're going to do, but if they draft a safety or a linebacker in the first round, I will retire and walk off into the sunset. But I can't afford to retire and walk off into the sunset. That's why I'm
wait a
confident.
minute. Who will be my co-host? Jacheco?
you ain't got to worry about it. That's how.
Andrew?
That's how.
Okay.
Don't lose a second of sleep.
We love Andrew, man. We're moving him up. Ready to move him up.
Listen, if it happens, it happens. I'll have to retire, but I'm that confident. If I had, some funds, I don't know if there were a prop bet with our friends at DraftKings. Will the Eagles draft the linebacker or safety in the first round?
That's a great one.
I
It's a
would
great one.
definitely hit the no on that and try to put as much money into it as
How
possible.
great would
It's
that
really
be?
funny. I gotta
Yeah.
tell you, it's funny when the Eagles signed Kaiser White. A couple people texted me. I think I said this last pod, but a couple people hit me up on Twitter or whatever, and YouTube probably. Do you think this means the Eagles won't draft a linebacker in the first round? And I said, well, you would have had to have believed that the Eagles were going to do that in the first place, and I certainly didn't. So that's the way it is. So, but yeah, now that they signed Kaiser White, you can even forget it even more so. That's just not happening. Not that that matters, but it's just not happening. At least in my opinion, it's not happening. We'll see. Like you can always be shocked. You always got to leave that that one. I call it the law of averages. Like someday, this franchise is going to take an off-ball linebacker in the first round. Now they may have a different owner. They may have a different GM.
Exactly.
You and I might
Exactly.
have grandchildren who have grandchildren right before it happens. But someday, somebody's going to make a bet and
Uh,
lose on that.
Let me tell you something. If they drafted a linebacker in the first round before drafting a safety in the first round, I just if you thought the Hurts pick was surprising, obviously that was shocking. Shocking. That would be even way more shocking if they drafted a linebacker, a real linebacker, not a pass rushing linebacker,
Right,
a
off-ball linebacker.
true, right, a true linebacker. Okay,
Yep.
not a stand-up linebacker who could rush the passer. Right, an on the ball means the guy's in the box, lining up over the defensive end. No, I'm talking about
Yeah.
a pure linebacker. That ain't
Right.
happening.
That is not happening. Now, don't they have drafted a few linebackers and then moved them to a different position? So it's got to be a true. You're
Yes,
drafted as a linebacker and you play off-ball linebacker, just to be sure. I don't want anybody trying to catch us on semantics or anything like that. You
I
mentioned Andrew. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would love it to happen though because it would just be it would tell me a lot that they're open to doing new things though. It goes against what they think. We're gonna have Joe Banner on. Joe's on with us on NFL Radio on Saturday, but we'll have him on once before the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of know his answer, but I want him to detail it more. We've asked him about this in the past, but I want to revisit it since we're in draft season because it's really he's the father of that. That was his belief, and obviously Howie Roseman carried it after Joe left, and obviously Andy Reid bought in. And it's hard to argue. Quite frankly, it's hard to argue with not spending a first round pick on a linebacker based on their success. But man, what Matt McCoy was a second round pick didn't work. He was a
Yeah.
total bust. But maybe just maybe they'll do a true linebacker in the second round this year. Who knows?
Well, there's a lot of good depth. We'll get into it probably with Greg in a future episode, but there is really good depth of linebacker this year as far as guys you'll see go in the second round, maybe early third. It wouldn't shock me if they used a top 60 pick on a linebacker, somebody in the second round. But first round, nope, I don't see it happening. Andrew DeCecco, you talked about him. He might be your co-host in case
I would love it.
I'm sure he'd be great. He'd probably be better than me. But
Nah, you know,
he's been doing a great job. You got to check out his Draft
yes.
Dreams series that he's been doing with small school college prospects. The last one was really cool with a kid named Jeffrey Gunter from Coastal Carolina, a pass rusher, probably going to go somewhere in the fourth or fifth round. Really explosive, great athlete, and big personality. He was a really fun interview. So make sure you check out Draft Dreams on both YouTube and Inside the Birds podcast platforms. Along with InsideTheBirds.com. Please subscribe, have it come to your RSS feed. We're working hard to give you written content or typed, whatever, digital content, along with the podcast and the YouTube channel. And Andrew does a great job writing stories. I've been writing stories. You write.
Guess
So
what?
please go to InsideTheBirds.com as regularly as you can and check it out.
I'm bringing in. Someone emailed
Mm-hmm.
me, and I'm like, this is a great idea. I didn't think of this, so I'll admit it. Wasn't my idea, but I think it's a great idea. How about a power rankings before the draft?
Oh, I love it.
Isn't
That's
that
a
a great
great idea.
idea?
We should do it.
I deleted the email. I'm sorry if the guy's watching. I apologize, but it was a great idea. If I could find it, I'll give the guy credit. We love when you guys come up with ideas. More often than not, we wind up doing it. So
Yeah,
we're going to do this one because it's now. I probably won't do it until closer to the draft because we want to see teams set sort of there because obviously there's still some good free agents out there.
sure.
So we want to see that. But I love the idea because it actually helps all of us, particularly you and
Mm-hmm.
I, for mock draft purposes because you kind of see what teams have done here. Well, look at the
Yep.
Dolphins, how they've altered the team, all the quarterback moves. Oh my head's going to explode with all the stuff, all the movement. You know, crazy.
No
I
doubt
love it
about it.
though.
And I still feel like there's going to be a trade somewhere. You know, like I think there's going to be still another big trade in the NFL before it's all said and done. I don't
Metcalf,
know if
we'll
you.
see.
I
Yeah.
mean, it just feels that way to me. I don't know. The way this offseason gone, it's gotten kind of quiet over the last week. I feel like something bombshell has to happen.
Well, I mean, look, Pete Carroll opened that can of worms. He used the Rick Spielman phrase, "It's our intention,"
Yep.
DK Metcalf to extend his contract. And the Seahawks. I know people have asked us about this. I'll just tell you what we know. Seahawks do want him on the team. They want to extend his contract. Where with Russell Wilson, they were ready to move on no matter what they said publicly.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they know they're in a semi rebuild, but the Metcalf stuff, Pete Carroll left it open, and it's his call, by the way, his personnel control. He just left it open, left the door open to trade him. We'll
Hmm.
see what happens. We'll see what happens.
See, I don't understand why they would trade him unless they were completely like just given the greatest offer you could ever imagine for I mean like a really really good offer because even though you can say they're quote unquote rebuilding, I mean they still have Jamal Adams there making a lot of money. They still have Tyler Lockett there, who's a pretty good receiver. They're
Yep.
welcoming in a new quarterback, right? And you want to surround him with as much to work with as possible. You know, Metcalf, Lockett. They have a good tight end, right? Didn't they bring in a tight end? I forget who they're.
No fan. Yeah, no fan of the
Yeah, they
trade.
traded for no right. He came over in the Russell Wilson decent that deal. That's decent. Rashad Penny came on at the end of the year last year. Probably gonna build up their offensive defensive lines to the draft. So even though they seem like they're going through the fire sale, getting rid of Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson, like if you're gonna trade DK Metcalf, you might as well then trade Lockett and Adams and
I'm with you.
everybody, and then like
Great
completely
point.
start over. But
It's a
nobody
great
does that.
point.
Yeah, no
That
one
that
really does
that's
that.
that's the best point of all this. You want to jettison older players, that's fine. But the Seahawks have to look at themselves as like what I understand. The knock on Metcalf is he's a one speed. He one speed. He doesn't throttle down very well. You got to get him going forward. That's all true. That's from tape study. That's what personnel people say. But he's
Mhm.
also a great player.
Yeah.
And look, you have to ask yourself this because I remember talking to John Snyder, the GM, about it. He doesn't believe in rebuilding. He calls it retooling, is his term.
Yep.
Well, you trade Russell Wilson, you trade your franchise quarterback. Drew Lock's not the answer. Everybody knows that. So they need a quarterback, as you said. Now they've got some draft capital because they recouped some of it from the Jamal Adams trade. They gave up a lot, but now they've got a first round pick. But they got a lot of work to do. It's not a very good roster. They have a lot of work to do, and it's a semi rebuild. No matter what Schneider thinks, the truth is that it's semi rebuild, and you don't do that getting rid of one of your best players, who's young, by the way. Like what?
Mhm.
I mean, he's a good, by all accounts, he's a good kid. Like, why would you trade him? So the reason why there's speculation is because he hasn't got his extension yet. But you have to understand now. Obviously, we have the Tyreek Hill deal. If his agent wants that type of deal, the Seahawks have a choice. They could not do the deal this year, then franchise him next year. It's not like they have to do anything. But you make a great point. Why would you trade away your best young players? That does not make any sense.
No, if there was one team that really sticks out to me, Adam, that seems ripe for Malik Willis, whether it's first round, probably it would be Seattle because they are a run the ball franchise. That's what Pete Carroll likes to do. They have good. I mean, again, Penny came on at the end. They can always add another running back to the game. They've got good passing weapons to support. They're always going to be kind of looking to build the defense, and they can support him and nurture him with the weaponry that they have and the running game that they're going to try to rely on. I'm not saying they'd be great with him in year one. I'm just saying I could see that as kind of a natural fit for who they are and what they like. So we'll see what happens with that there. And now they got some picks from all the deals that they've made. All right, let's get it back to focusing on the Eagles. We'll kind of get into looking at them as we are 4 weeks away from the draft. First, I want to remind you that we are so excited about our partnership with Devacor. Over the last year, we've all seen what's known as the Great Resignation, which has made it clear that there's no better time to change careers than the present. Devacor is a Philly area, family-owned career development company that helps guide hardworking professionals on the path to new and fulfilling careers. Unlike those big companies in the career development space that offer the same cookie-cutter career advice and services, Devacor's certified career development team is hands-on, passionate, knowledgeable, and they take pride in working closely with their clients to ensure that their experience is personalized and tailored to their needs. So whether you're in need of a new resume, a cover letter, a CV, or you just want to optimize your LinkedIn profile, even if you want to work with a career coach, Devacor has you covered in all spaces. So go to devacor.com/birds to schedule a free 15-minute career coaching consultation and to receive an exclusive 15% discount on your next order. That's devacor.com/birds, a free 15-minute career coaching consultation and an exclusive 15% discount on your next order. All right. Let us talk about the Eagles offense. How you see running back right now, Adam? They bring back Boston Scott. They've got Miles Sanders. They've got Kenneth Gainwell ready for a bigger role.
Yep.
Trying to think, did they kept Huntley on the practice squad
Yeah.
all year last year?
They signed him. Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, that's right. So he's back one, like a futures deal, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah, he's just a guy. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
he'll never contribute.
This
As
is
long
this
as
is a
no one,
position. Yeah, this is a position we feel like if they're going to make another move, it's probably in the draft.
it could be either. I mean, it could be a veteran. I don't know if they would draft someone, but here's a question for you off of what you just said.
Well, I think we thought draft because we expected Boston Scott to probably not be back, but he came back pretty quickly.
Right, but what I'm saying is Sanders is on the last year of his deal. We know it would be kind of, I hate to say shocking, but it'd be very surprising if they wound up extending his deal. As talented as he is, we know he's got a pretty bad injury history. So, he's on the final year of his deal. You've got Gainwell. They like to be the number two. Boston Scott's the jack of all trades guy, fills in any way they need him. He's been a good story of development since he was signed for the Saints practice squad. But Gainwell's the guy they like to be the number two.
Mm-hmm.
They need one more guy. It could, like you said, could it be from the draft? Yes, but the guy that their sort of default guy has been Jordan Howard. Every time you think the guy's gone away, he'll never come back. He comes back. So just recent history would show you they'd probably lean towards more veteran. Now, on your draft question, your draft point, yes. Could they do that? I still think it'd be a veteran, but if they draft a running back in the second, Miles Sanders is not going to be back in 23. That ain't happening.
Oh yeah,
So
I mean, I guess it would shock me if they drafted a running back on day one or day two, maybe third round if you wind up with an extra. Well, they have 2 third-round picks, don't they?
yeah, I don't have the
I
order in
don't have
front.
the list in front of me,
Okay,
but
I
that
got
could
it.
change anyway. They can acquire one. But I sort of see them in the market for a day 3 running back, and specifically one that has a little size to him, maybe not great breakaway speed because they got plenty of that with Miles and plenty of that with Kenny Gainwell. So I don't know that they need another, twitchy, speedy guy. I mean, I think that if they get themselves a guy like Jordan Howard, but younger, who can kind of, give you the 1 or 2 yards on third and short if you need. And I wouldn't even talk to Jordan Howard until after the draft anyway, like they
Yeah,
did with
sure.
Garrett Blunt, because if you get that guy in the draft and then you bring him in OTAs and you see what you got and you see how he does in pass protection, then you can decide afterward, do I still need to sign a veteran or can I rely on this guy to be my third or fourth running back if I need to? Unless they feel, Adam, that they need a veteran to be able to start if Miles Sanders got hurt
That's
and
why.
Kenneth Gainwell is still
Yeah.
not like the big enough kind of like Jordan Howard did. Like Jordan Howard was a co-starter when Miles Sanders was hurt.
Right, and that's what I was thinking. But you know what's interesting about Gainwell? Remember he got all those short yardage carries?
Yeah. He
It
gets
was
skinny to the
weird
hole
because
pretty
he's kind of
well.
what's that?
He gets skinny to the hole pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, it's a
I
good
like it.
point. Yeah, he really surprised me. I never saw that. In fact, no one mentioned that to me before the draft. Who had some really good information on Gainwell that he could be that guy. Maybe they just saw something.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But they want to see more out of him, and I'm interested to see how they use him. See, my issue is that we said this last year. If Sanders got hurt, was out for a long period of time, because again, we didn't know that they were going to change the courses that going from throwing the ball around 34 and a half, 35 times per game
Mm-hmm.
to only throwing it 25 times per game. No one could have made that up. I mean, just no one saw this, but it worked. But you'd really like to have someone sustainable in back of Sanders who you definitely know has done it before. Now,
Right.
on like a third round pick
Mm-hmm.
versus now, if to me, if you draft a guy in the third round I still don't think that bodes great for Sanders. I'm not saying they wouldn't bring him back, but if you draft a guy in the second round, because this team, it's interesting. I think Jeffrey Lurie was asked this last week at the owners' meetings about the running game, being this. I forget exactly what he said about. I know he's asked. I just don't remember his exact answer on it.
Hmm.
About is he happy about this being a running team? Because it's not really what they'd ever done before under this regime. Well, actually, under this owner, they just believe in the passing game. But the good thing is we saw last year they could do it. But to me, we had said last year they need to have an answer if Sanders got hurt. Yeah, they went with committee. It worked. But you'd really like to have that one guy who can handle a
Hmm.
high volume of carries. If Sanders was out 2 months, you'd like to have that guy. To me, it's either to me, I'd rather have a veteran.
Hmm.
But hey, we'll see what happens.
The funny thing is, if it winds up being Jordan Howard, as happy as people could be for bringing back Jordan Howard, who was pretty effective in his limited role when he finally
Yeah.
got the ball, I feel like that just feeds into the run it back stigma that people can't stand right now.
Okay.
And Jordan was, I mean, every time he's with the Eagles, he's also like fighting off injuries. It was the stinger a couple of years
Yeah.
ago. Didn't he have a stinger again this past year?
Yes,
I
he
mean, he
did.
missed it in the knee too. So it might be time to just look at. I mean, listen. There are we got names here we can go, and they'll all probably have a little bit of an injury history. Whether it's I don't know, like David Johnson or Peyton Barber has he had an injury history?
No, he's just
No, he's
what
been
he
pretty
is.
good, right?
He's a power back,
Hmm.
short yardage guy. Not zero explosiveness, but he's a tough inside runner.
Right.
Our list, David Johnson's pretty much, he's almost at the end. Devontae Freeman shocked, like he looked good at times with Baltimore when they
Yep.
remember they lost, they were down two backs. He actually showed he
Two.
could play.
Two. They
Yeah.
were down like four backs at one point.
Well,
Yeah.
the top two guys to ACLs, unfortunately, crazy.
Yep.
It's terrible.
I mean, they had
Uh,
Le'Veon Bell in there for like a cup of
right,
coffee.
right. He didn't look good at all. But Darrell Williams is out there now. He's probably not going to go back to Kansas City because they brought in Ronald Jones,
Right.
surprisingly.
Right.
Uh, Someone asked about Melvin Gordon. The Broncos, as I understand it, want him back. Well, that goes in my never say never bucket. Um,
Mm.
with him, he showed. Look, I'll tell you what, he showed he
He
can
had a
still
good
play.
year.
He's had a lot. What's that?
He had a good year last year.
He did. A lot of injuries, but they're going with. They've already made the decision. Javonte Williams is their starter, but they need a good backup. And Gordon showed he can still play. Yeah, you're right. He had a good year. So um, I don't see the thing there is the money. It's one thing if he was willing to take 1 year or 2 million, I'm all in. I just don't know if he's willing to do that because he did a good job. But the longer this, and he also changed agents. He's got Joe Panos, former
Mhm.
Eagles offensive lineman Joe Panos, and then Sony Michel's a grinder. He's kind of like Gordon in that Gordon was super explosive. Then he had that microfracture surgery earlier in his career. He's come over a grinder if you watch him run.
Mhm.
Michel's a grinder who has had a lot of injuries, but is a tough inside runner. Um, I'm all for guys who can handle volume. It's Michel to me, who's younger than Gordon. Uh, the Rams just seem to have moved on. They gave up
Mhm.
the 2 picks as insurance policy, but they've got
Mhm.
Cam Akers back. So there's some good backs out there. The best point of all of this is the Eagles have all the leverage here because there's so many backs out there. They just need someone
Right.
as an emergency policy right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Richard, Carlos Hyde, also Jerick McKinnon. There's guys here who can move the change for you at very, cost efficient kind of money. So, man, I selfishly hope I'd like, if the Eagles get Melvin Gordon, I think that's cool. I'm a Javante Williams owner in fantasy in a keeper. So I actually gave up like a lot for him. So I
I
want to
remember
see
you
Melvin
asking me.
Gordon off
Yeah.
that team.
No, I remember you asked me, what do you think about Javante? And I said, first of all, if I have the second pick overall this year, I'm taking Javante. I don't care if Melvin Gordon comes back or not. He's
Jonathan
special.
Taylor one, Javante two.
I know it's a little gamble, but I'll roll the dice a little bit. I just think he's gifted and special, and he
I
does
agree.
everything well. And he was drafted to be the starter, so that's the way they'll look. And Jalen Richard is only a changeup and a third down back.
Right.
And Jerick McKinnon, I'll say this, but he's a changeup. But I'll tell you what, with missing 2 full seasons
Mhm.
essentially with the Niners, he showed he could still play. Like he's explosive, but he can't handle a high volume of carries. So That's the thing that they need. They need a guy who they know they could go to. And you brought up the point earlier, which to me and we got to when we get the Ask ITB questions, this is a big one.
Mhm.
What is this offense going to be? I don't know.
Yeah. By the way,
Run it fast.
The Niners are like a running back graveyard, man. They're like what Washington and Denver used to be. Running back go there, they get the ball, high volume, and then they leave after a year or two like a shell of themselves. I mean, whether it's Breida, whether it's Mostert,
Oh God.
McKinnon.
Yeah.
Although McKinnon
Yeah.
was a little banged up even before he got there, I
Oh
think
no,
from
he had two. No, he had two. He missed two full seasons with the Niners. Yeah.
with the
Before
Niners. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, there's something about that Shanahan offense. You get a lot of opportunity, but you also you come out on the other side a whole different person before you went in.
But no,
Um,
what I was saying is before we move
mhm.
on, the question is this: what is this Eagles offense going to look like?
Yeah.
They,
No, it's a great question.
I don't have an answer. I don't know. It shocked us when they did it. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in 19 years, 20 years coming this business. Never seen a team completely change course in the middle of the season. It's one thing to do it at the start. That's another thing to do it during the season.
Mhm.
As you pointed out many times, it was that Raiders game, though they got blown out, they actually started coming out running the football, which is
Yep.
surprising.
Under
And
center.
what's that?
Under center.
Yeah, with Hurts, right? And then Sanders looked good, and he actually got hurt in that game. But so we'll see. And Cosell made that point many shows ago when we were doing the free agent stuff with him. He said, "Look, if you're going to add a big time receiver, is it absolutely necessary if you're going to just pound the ball as much?" See, that's the conundrum here. I don't know.
Right. Right. No, totally agree. We have to figure that out before we really know what they're going to do. Wide receiver, as you say all the time, the Eagles have been giving you the answers to the test. You know, they wanted to get Calvin Ridley, almost had him. Trade fell through because of what was going on with Calvin Ridley. Competitive on Allen Robinson, did not get him. So you know that they're looking for that guy who can come in and play the X position. Um, and really solidify what they need and really also add the veteran presence to this very young wide receiver core. They signed Zach Pascal. You know, Jason Avant was pretty adamant on how that's a good signing, but it's not like adding that sage, that veteran who's going to take the group and really, under its wings. So it looks like they're going to have to look to the draft. Now, again, even if you draft one high, Adam, first round, second round, which it feels like the Eagles are going to do, that's just another young guy added to this mix. It's not a veteran.
Well, the thing Pascal adds toughness and physicality, but he's a backup only. Your point's well taken because generally, well, the fact that they went after Allen Robinson tells you they want a veteran to start, if not start, play a pretty significant role because Allen Robinson was starting. If he came here, there's no debate. That's what was
Mhm.
happening.
Mhm.
So we just signed for 15.5 million, and the Eagles, I'm told that their offer is super competitive, wasn't too far off from what the Rams paid him.
Mhm.
So, and Ridley, now obviously, if they would have made the trade, they would have redid his deal. They would have extended it.
Right.
Now, it's a funny thing is that we don't know. We know he's out for a year. There's nothing going on with the situation right now. So, and Juju Smith-Schuster, they were in on early. They like other teams. There was a knee issue with him, so they were going to go light on him anyway. And that would not have, by the way, even if they signed Juju, my understanding was that absolutely positively would have nothing to do with what they would do in the first round. If there was a receiver they liked, they would draft him, which they probably still will do if they don't trade for a veteran by the draft. They're
Mhm.
barring something unforeseen. You're probably going to see a receiver in the first round. Now, that is with 3 first round picks. If they only have 2, depends who's on the board. But they they want to do some significant receiver. It's obvious. The answers to the test have been given. They've already tried. So why would they not? And it just goes to show you when the head coach talks about players. Sometimes I think he believes these players like Quez Watkins, but when the results give you a different story. The fact that they went after Robinson and Ridley, that tells you that that's not reality.
All right.
That's a bottom line.
I think the biggest tell since that Howie is going to draft a wide receiver, and if he does sign a wide receiver veteran, it's going to be a low cost 1 year deal, was that he was not willing, to our knowledge, to give up, a better package than what the Patriots gave up for Devontae Parker, who we thought would be a guy who fits what they need, a natural X, a bigger body, veteran, not too expensive. He's 2 years on his deal. It's a good price. I mean, it's certainly something the Eagles could afford, but the Eagles did not get in on that, or at least they did not come home with it if they were in. So that to me tells you what you're looking at with where the Eagles are going at that position.
Yeah, they got the third they were looking for, but they had to give a fifth back. It's the Dolphins were looking to do one big thing. They were looking to move his contract. They wanted it off the roster. The top three spots were taken. Cedric Wilson's the third receiver at $7 million a year, which is a lot for a third receiver, but he gives them a little bit of size protection. A
Mm-hmm.
good player, by the way, very underrated. So they spent a lot of resources on receiver, which I very odd to 30 million for one guy, first rounder for another guy, and then 7 million for another guy. It's a little much, but so yeah, to finish this off, I look for the Eagles to add two receivers, one rookie at minimum. Uh, it's going to be early. Now we'll see what they have and how what if they make a trade, um, and then one veteran at some point by training camp. They can't. Now we'll get into regular situation and some things that might happen on offense by the draft or during the draft or after the draft or by training camp or whatever. But now, could they sign a veteran on the street? Jarvis Landry's out there, who's come off this pretty significant injury. He's such a great locker room guy. He's just talking to people who've coached him. They love him. He's so tough. Um, Emotional leader. Guys rally off of his energy. Uh, but he could play on the outside, which he was forced to do with the Browns over the years. But he's really a slot receiver. Will Fuller, too many injuries, super explosive. AJ Green's out there. He's got a little bit left. He showed he can still play. Emmanuel Sanders is almost done, and Sammy Watkins. That would
Mm-hmm.
shock me if they signed him.
Yeah.
Just he looks like he's near the end and not old, but he's not the same player once was. Keelan Cole's out there as more of a backup. To me,
Right.
that makes no sense. They need a guy to move on here to right before we get to tight end. They need a guy they can count on who can play significant snaps if needed, and half of these guys can't because of age and injury history. But
Mm-hmm.
here's a question, because Sirianni talks about he doesn't like X and Z. Although the reality is, you trade for Calvin Ridley or you sign Allen Robinson, there's your X. Although the Bears, speaking to them last year, they wanted to move him out of the X position, move him to the slot. But there's your X, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing if they spend that first round pick, one of the three, on a first rounder, that guy's got to play X. I don't see a Z. To me, Devontae Smith would be a perfect move receiver. Perfect Z.
Oh, absolutely. Would be a perfect Z. And by the way, if the Eagles are going to draft a wide receiver in the first, it's clear. I mean, I sense here that the Eagles are now being very selective and choosy in free agency here at receiver or the trade market, like you saw with Devontae there, because if they draft a kid high, they want the kid to play. And if the
Yeah,
kid
Howie
plays,
Roseman said that.
yeah, he said that. So it seems more and more likely to me that if this happens, that Jalen Reagor is not going to have a role on the Philadelphia Eagles going forward. And so more and more likely that if they bring in a receiver high in the draft and then maybe another one or two, that they're going to have to move Jalen Reagor. I know people think that they don't want to do that because of the attachment in the first round pick, but you don't want a guy who's your first round pick who is not even in the top four
Yeah,
on your
he would.
depth chart, 4 or 5, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So if you can get
They'll-
something for him, you do it.
They will. They will have interest if they don't have it already, because just checking into how he's looked at. You could certainly argue whether he should have been a first round pick or not, but his college tape was very intriguing. I remember Cosell. Greg liked him. I know people would ask this. He absolutely liked him. There's no doubt about
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
He doesn't do rounds. He's not a draft guy. He's not a draft guy with rounds. He just goes by the tape, and he liked him. He liked him a lot.
Yeah.
Um, but the fact of the matter is, it hasn't happened for him through 2 years. You mentioned, you went through the scenario here. If they're drafting a guy in the first round, you can't justify having him on the team. He needs to be moved somewhere where he could get a chance to play and learn from it. And it didn't work like they thought it would. And then the other one is, Andre Dillard. To me, this is the year to trade him. If you're ever going to trade him, now's the time, because it's the guy is cast at left tackle. It's Mailata's job. He's not losing it. He's the guy. He signed his big extension, 16 on a year,
Mhm.
and it's no longer about having depth. They've got plenty of depth. They've got guys who could play left tackle if need be. Laraven Clark now could back up both tackle spots. Remember, they brought him back for a reason.
Mhm.
We know the Eagles are going to draft a lineman. We don't know how high it's going to be, but their history shows they don't ignore it. Even when you think it's overkill, they turn out to be right just about every single time. They just have a feel for it. Like really, no other team. They certainly aren't perfect. They've missed at receiver. They've somewhat missed a corner over the years, though you could argue they haven't used enough resources on it. But
Hmm.
they're just amazing at offensive line, and I give the GM credit for deferring a lot to the O line coach. It's just Chip Kelly. For much as people bury him, some of it's rightfully true. What a hire that was.
Yes, that was a great hire. All right, tight ends. We are in agreement. The Eagles are likely to draft one, probably third or fourth round, depending on how things go. Because right now, behind Dallas Goedert, you've got Jack Stoll. Unfortunately, with Tyree Jackson coming off the ACL, you can't really know for sure what you're going to get out of him. So you got an undrafted free agent. You have Richard Rodgers back, who's always dependable, and he'll probably be your number 3 tight end. But you're going to want a nice number 2 tight end for the future. Like when
I,
it's kind of like when the Eagles had Trey Burton and Zach Ertz. I mean, they had 2
yes.
young enough guys that they could use, and then they had Selleck also as the veteran. So
Oh, yeah, gosh,
it's
that's
another
right. He was on the
area.
Super Bowl team. I
Yeah,
totally forgot that was Brent's last year, correct? 17?
that was his last year. Yeah,
Um, I'm with you there. My sense is they'll go rookie. I don't see second round. I don't see that because then you're back with the Goddard Ertz thing.
I agree
One of
with
the
you.
many reasons why they tried to trade Ertz by the draft last year because
Right.
you're pigeonhole coaches. It's not fair. If you draft a tight end in the second round, the answers to the test are done. The guy's got to play a lot, and you're
Yeah.
forced because Goddard signed to an extension now. You have to play both. You got to be heavy 12 personnel. You don't want to ever. It's not fair to coaches. I understand your board is your board. If he's the best guy there, you kind of have to take him, but you don't. You have to. This to me. If you and I were running the show, this is a major discussion. If the best player on the board's a tight end, that's a toughie. That's a because I really don't want to. I just don't think it's fair to coaches. This is what we were talking about last year at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically, it's funny how
Mm-hmm.
that works. It's just funny how that works. And now but you're right. I see them drafting a tight end as early as the third round, and it gives you the ability to play whatever you want. If the guy's good, you get on the field early. You mentioned Richard Rodgers.
Yep.
When asked to play significant snaps when he's not been hurt, he's done a nice job. He runs a little bit better than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Former third rounder, was it for the Packers many years ago? If I'm not mistaken.
I think it was he a third rounder? Was it that high? Okay, maybe.
I'll look right now.
Yeah. But
Um,
no, yeah, I agree. Third round is probably the highest. I would agree.
Third
Fourth,
and
fifth
14,
seems
yeah.
yeah, more like the target area. But yeah, I could definitely see it happening in the third. But I think that would be the highest that they
Yep,
would
I agree.
go,
Yep.
especially if they have multiple in that round. Um,
They
special
have one now.
teams.
Real
What's
quick,
that?
they have
Yeah.
real quick. So you had asked earlier. So they do have their second, which is 51. They didn't get
Hmm.
any comp picks, as we know. Third rounder is 83.
Okay,
Fourth
that's
rounder
right.
is
Just one
120.
third. Right.
Right. So they have one, a two, a three, a four, two fives. Actually, three fives. Goodness gracious, three
Yeah.
fives and a six of their 10 draft pick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As we speak.
Right.
What's that?
Howie Roseman's going to take that one of those first round picks, trade down, and then
Oh
add
yeah,
a couple. Add something for either the second,
next
third, or
year.
fourth round. You just know, or next
Or
and
next
next year.
year,
Yeah,
or
or
next
next
year,
year.
right?
Right.
I'd be very surprised. And don't I know you have the research on this? I cannot wait to hear this. Is it
Oh,
our
it's going
next
to be
show
a
we're doing?
fun pod. Yep.
I love these things, these research projects. I want to hear this one.
I did 2 things for
Okay,
future pods. I
give
did.
us a hint. Give us a hint. What's it sound like?
Yeah, I'm not going to give any. I'm just going to say one pod. We're going to talk about the recent history of teams who had 3 or more first round picks, and we'll go through who they picked and whether or not that you deem that to be successful, right? And then we're going to look in a different pod just on who has gone 15th overall, who has gone 16th overall, and who has gone 19th
Mm,
overall
mm,
in the last 10 years. And I have all the names charted out, and we'll look and we'll see, hey, if you came out in this year with this guy, this guy, and this guy who went 15, 16, and 19 6 years ago. If
mm.
those kind of talents were on this year's team, would that make the Eagles a lot better? Or would you say, no, it's probably better to package a pick and move up into the top 10, So, because
Mm.
there's arguments to be made
Yeah,
on both sides. So we'll
I'm
have fun doing that.
looking forward to that. Yeah, that'll be fun. The. So I got early opinions on the first round. How many first round grades there are?
Mm-hmm.
I've got 13 to 14 is the number that I have so far. I want to get at least a half dozen opinions from
Okay.
high-ranking personnel people around the league, but
That's not a high number. I mean, I know there's
no,
never 32.
no. It's usually Polian told me. Bill said 12 to 15 typically is the range. Last
Hmm.
time we talked about that was a couple years ago. So I see. This is why this is why I think it's. I hate to say lock. You can't say for sure, but the odds are. Everyone thinks that it's funny. You see the comments on social media. Everyone thinks the Eagles will trade out of one of those first round picks. So, but it's all what happens in front of them and what the board looks like. And your nugget on Sauce Gardner, as you first reported last week, visiting on April 10th, or wherever it is, April 10th, April 11th.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. April 10th.
to me, and I'm not big on trading up uh, that high because he's going to go somewhere. He's going to go somewhere in the top 10. That's a
Hmm.
guy you want. I hate to say can't miss. It's not right, but he's clean. I've done a lot of work on him. He's an absolute stud. Just getting opinions from receivers coaches. Actually, I've seen him. He's about. You hate the term lockdown corner because it's just not fair anymore with the rules. But he's about as gifted and as clean and as talented and as competitive as it gets. So it would be interesting if they actually wound up in trading for him. I mean, you folks, you could take that to the bank. That guy's starting day one, and there you go. There's your 8 to 10 year starter. But
Yeah.
we
Well,
digress.
we'll get into that in a second when we talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the corners. But
Yes.
all right. So finishing off and moving into special teams, do you think? I mean, we the punter really hurt them down the stretch.
Did.
Sipos. That was. But he did have a good year. We tend to only remember the last thing you see. Thought he had a really good September and October. He just seemed to really falter down the stretch, and I don't know if that's because of the cold weather or just kind of lost his mojo.
He struggled after he was good. It was like, wow, they found their next punter.
Right.
They got Jake Elliott back. Boy, he was great. And, kudos to Tyler Brown, their specials coach, did a great job with these guys. But they got to get. I knowing the way the Eagles are, I'm fully expecting competition. I'm not saying they're going to draft a punter, but some veteran. There are a lot of good ones. Bajorquez, the former punter of the Packers, or the actually, where was he? Yeah, Green Bay. He was terrific.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they're not bringing him back. Riley Dixon, who was a rare cap casualty. Teams rarely cut players for cap issues anymore,
Right.
but he was cut for cap issues because they were looking to clear money. Thomas Morstead is sort of a journeyman, but once was the best punter in football. One
Mm-hmm.
of the Colquitt brothers, Dustin Colquitt. You might remember his dad, Craig, from the Steelers from the '80s.
Yeah.
Dustin's out there, so there are plenty of guys that come in for competition, but they
Mm-hmm.
have to do something here. They can't go with supposes that only the guy. I'd be shocked if they don't have competition.
But to be fair, they even when the kicker struggled, Elliott struggled, they didn't really bring in somebody to push him. They just worked him and expected him to work. I guess maybe the difference was they gave him a contract extension, so you're not gonna, cut the guy after you give him
Yeah,
an extension. You got to work with him. But I don't know. I've seen them have issues with punters in the past. Even the first year for who was
Cam
that
Johnson,
Australian guy? No,
Cam Johnson.
like Savroka, right?
Oh,
He had like
Stavro. Wow,
yeah,
Stavroka.
they never brought in a guy in after his first year when it was kind of and they seem to like work with these guys more so than push them.
I agree, but this drop off was pretty
It was precipitous,
significant.
yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine they wouldn't do that. I get what we were told with Jake Elliott was there was it was called the operation.
Right.
It was less about Elliott, though obviously he's the one kicking it. It coming from the 2 years ago, it was the snap to the hold to the placement, the whole operation, and they cured it. And he was really good. I mean, he really bounced back, and they paid his roster. He earned his roster bonus last month, so he's good to go. Lovato's back there, but just knowing the Eagles the way they think, I'd be very surprised if they don't have a punter at some point, even by training
Okay.
camp. So we'll see.
But think about what you're saying because the punter is also 1/3 of that operation. He's the
I
holder on
understand.
the
I
kick.
get it.
So you might screw around with the operation that worked so well last year if you have to replace the punter and he's not as good of a holder. So kind of
Well,
puts you in a bind. I mean,
well,
look, I get it. You need a punter
there are
who's
also
good.
veteran punters here, though. So
That's true.
that's not,
That's true.
these guys. Some of these guys have done it. Um, if you're trying to be great, obviously they'll talk to I can say what they have 3 coaches or something. Not Mike Clay. Well, no, Mike Clay's the overall special teams coach, but
Right.
Tyler Brown's the specials coach, and
Joe Panunzio is the assistant special teams
Right,
coach.
he's sort of the overseer of the two guys. So
Yeah.
two young coaches. So we'll see. It's God, it's the most we talk about special teams in like a year.
Yeah, let's quit doing that now before people
Sorry.
fall asleep. No, I'm just kidding. All right, I want to get into a few potential trade targets. First, I want to remind everyone to download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use that promo code ITB and get yourself some great sign-up bonuses. That's promo code ITB on all your sign-up for all your sign-up bonuses at the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right, so we've talked already a little bit about Jalen Reagor. We'll see what happens with him. I agree with you. I think that there's a better than long shot potential of him getting moved if the Eagles continue to make moves at wide receiver. And we haven't talked much, but it seems like Andre Dillard should be someone you would think that they'd want to move before the draft to get a pick. I don't know if it may happen afterward, but
During the draft, yeah, during the draft.
or during, yeah.
I still think third round makes the most sense. We've been talking about this now for 9 months. I mean, it is amazing that multiple teams told me they called the Eagles. They really didn't want to move him.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, the way that one guy who spoke to the Eagles told me, he goes, man, in their talks with the Eagles, they really value depth, which I get. Totally smart. I understand that. But man, they weren't like not even listening. Like they didn't want to. They're like, nah, we're good there. We want to keep him, and we know Mailata was hurt the first years with a back injury, but he's
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
Got his weight down after being over 400 at one point. He's 380, that range. He looks great, by the way. I saw him at the Super Bowl. What a voice, by the way. My goodness gracious. Wow. If you're not aware of it, what was it? The Masked Singer?
Masked Singer, yeah.
Yeah, he did an unbelievable job, folks. You have to go to YouTube and see it. It's just crazy. And he plays
Just for the outfit alone.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
You get the great singing voice, the outfit alone.
Right. And by the way, it's so funny how the panel, like they kept guessing, like every player that came to mind was tall.
Yeah.
It's just funny. I won't give it away in terms of the names they came up with. It's just absurd. Like they were so off. And then one dude goes, "Oh yeah, Jordan Mailata, yeah." Like, oh come on, man.
Not a lot of people know who Jordan Mailata is.
I know. No, I know. That's the point. It's like, don't act like you knew who he was. Come on.
Right.
Anyway.
Okay, so we'll have to keep our eyes out on Dillard and Reagor. I don't know if they have anybody else that you would consider ripe for trade. They're just not deep in enough areas other than offensive line that you would think that somebody would be traded. All right, so we'll move on and we'll go through the defense. First, I want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience. Enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's pause real quick for another word from our great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you go out there and see the good folks at Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right, let's look at this defensive line. We'll start off with defensive end. So they've brought Derek Barnett back in the fold. They have Josh Sweat. Brandon Graham's coming back. That's your top three. Teron Jackson was a 6th-round pick from last year. Still has to make the team, but technically that's 4 guys under contract. You think they still sign? You and I think that the Eagles addressed the pass rush pretty early in the draft. As far as could be a DN, could be a linebacker on ball, who knows? Or could be a D tackle. But
I would fully expect a DN. I'd be shocked.
I would think DN too.
DN. Yeah. I don't see them. They've got Reddick as that pass rusher, stand-up pass rusher.
Right.
So, yeah, Graham coming off the torn Achilles, nobody has any idea of how he could play coming off of it. Teron Jackson's the 4th end, no better at this point. Barnett is a guy that's never been consistent. I get he's on a 2-year deal, but they can get it after 1 year with a very little penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Malveaux kind of flashed, but he's a 5th end, 4th end. The only answer they have right now at the end, guy you absolutely depend on, is Josh Sweat.
Yep.
So, other than that, to me, you gotta. It's never about how many guys you have. You could have 50 guys at the end. That's not the point. The point is, how many guys do you believe in that could get the job done if they have to start? One guy.
Right.
One guy right now.
Right. From a talent standpoint, they feel 3 deep as far as who you could play. And when I say 3 deep, it's Sweat, it's Barnett, and it's Brandon Graham, maybe 2.5 because you just don't know
Yeah.
when he'll be ready and if he'll be ready. But then there's the Teron Jackson. So between Teron, who still has to make the team, and Brandon Graham, maybe you get a third there. But you're right; it only feels like too deep and really one reliable guy.
And remember, it's not about this year. Sure, you'd love to get a ton out of your first round pick. The first round pick will play theoretically, but it's
Hmm.
about next 4, 5, 6 years. The guy that they draft is going to start opposite Sweat for the future. Hopefully this year, but in the future as well. Obviously, that's why you're doing it.
Hmm.
Draft is not you don't draft a guy for 1 year and trade him. He's got to be there for 5, 6 years, hopefully, if not more. So this draft, and another thing is, if you're Eagles, you're never going to be in a position like this again after your first round picks. Like to be able now, we'll get into kind of what we're hearing about not only round grades for defensive ends, kind of what the range is per picks for. Is this guy 6 through 10, 10 through 18, 20? Absolutely, we promise you we'll hone in on that. We don't
Hmm.
have that yet, but we're working on it. Because the Eagles, look, they're picking the first round with 3 first round picks as of now, and they're unfortunately they're sort of in the middle.
Hmm.
But there'll be guys there. But the question is, are they super high end guys? Or is it? Here's another thing: is the drop off? Is it okay? This guy, and then the drop off? Like we don't know that yet. We'll the rankings out there, but those are just rankings at websites that just don't really tell you anything. It's what do NFL people think, and we'll get that for you.
Do you think that they're still in the market for a free agent veteran defensive end? I don't know how many more veterans you want. I mean, you've already
Yeah,
got Brandon and you've
I
got
don't think
Derek
so.
here.
Because
Yeah,
on that, right? So think about it, right? We know Sweat's starting. That's not in debate. You got Graham's your veteran. We'll see how he looks. Barnett's technically a veteran. Okay, younger
yeah,
veteran.
yep,
How many? Yeah, 100% right. Just
yeah.
draft that guy.
I
I'd
agree.
say they draft one guy. If the board goes like they would like it to go, they draft that DN. If it matches up, I'd be shocked if they didn't draft one in the first round if the guy's there.
Hmm.
If it's down to like the receiver DN to me, you take DN. It's just the more valued pick, as Gil Brandt told me, the Hall of Fame personnel man. Gil told me when you draft your value board, it was quarterback, left offensive tackle, right defensive end, and so forth. I remember
Hmm.
that discussion vividly, and it was so enlightening because you'd see, but it's funny. Not every personnel man agrees with that, but if you're building a team, from scratch, I don't see how you wouldn't do that. You know,
Right, right.
so
Also, remember now that your strong side linebacker is a pass rusher and nickel, like he is a defensive end, so it's Reddick and Sweat. You don't necessarily need as much depth as you have at defensive end. You could use some depth at strong side linebacker and consider that depth in the pass rush. And they have Patrick Johnson. They did obviously Jannard Avery went and signed with the Steelers, but maybe late in the round they find a guy who's more like a outside edge rusher from a stand up position that can compete with Patrick Johnson to be the backup to Hassan Reddick. But it doesn't have to be a pass rushing defensive end anymore because of this new position that they play. So
true,
that's another thing
true,
to keep in mind.
true.
What about defensive tackle? I mean, as far as depth,
Mm.
we know they have Hargrave, we know if they have Fletcher Cox, we know they have Milton Williams. So again, kind of 3 deep because after that, you get into guys who are either on futures deals or they're and Milton can
Yeah.
also play defensive end if you need, by the
Yep.
way. So
True. True. He
so
did.
this is another position where it feels like they'll address in the draft, but I could see them trying to think. The only way I could see them addressing this in free agency is if they feel like they need that nose like the guy the shade, like the bigger, like a Linval Joseph type, like a
Oh,
space eater who's only going
huge.
to play on first
Yeah.
and second down.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even if you did that, like I guess you're taking Cox off the field and then making him what, like a really high paid situational pass rusher?
Well, think of it this way. Let's look to the future. Cox almost certainly will not be with the team past 22 if he's not traded by the trade deadline. And again, if they're in the playoff race, obviously keep him. If not, maybe you look to trade him to a team that's going farther than the Eagles. We'll see how the Eagles do this season. But theoretically, after the season, it's Hargrave. We know he's going to be back. Milt Williams, he'll be back. And then after that, you don't know about Tui Pelotu. Yes, we know he had a hamstring injury, pretty significant hamstring injury. So
Hmm.
he was non-factor, but they do like him, but you can't count on him.
Right.
So for the future, they don't have. I mean, they've got 2 guys, sure, but Milt Williams right now, uh, fact that Cox is back tells you that they don't see Milton Williams right now as a starter. Great, really good third tackle, as you
Yep.
said, to play in.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, yeah, I think they're in the market for a D tackle. I wouldn't rule out a first rounder. I wouldn't put it very high. I would put DN much higher, but I
Mm-hmm.
won't rule that out because the Eagles love having that rotation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
Historically.
All right. So let's get into the next position, linebacker. I think it's pretty clear that they've made their free agency move with Kazir White. By the way, remember last episode we were going through all the placeholder linebackers that they've brought in who've just whether it's Eric Wilson or Corey Peters or Corey Nelson, right? Or Jatavis Brown, who retired. We forgot one. This thing goes back more years than I thought. Paul Warlow, remember him?
Oh gosh, he tore his from Delaware. Would he go to Delaware?
Yeah, he came over from the Lions.
Shame.
Yeah.
He
just the worst.
So sad,
man.
he looked like he's going to be a starter for a long time. Then he tore his ACL, and the knee, I'm told, was never right.
Right.
And it's too bad. Yeah, it's right. He never was. Was he? He was never on the team though, right?
Yeah. He signed a contract with the team.
No. But didn't they cut? Was he not ready physically? Or something?
What happened was he tore his ACL in OTAs, I believe. So he never really made it to training camp with the team. Yeah, he never played for the team.
Yeah.
So
too bad.
Yeah. So man, their bad luck on these placeholder linebackers has really extended.
It's funny because people make fun of the Eagles with these guys. Yeah, they didn't work out. The only good thing is they didn't spend a lot of money. They very little money. Right. But the fact is, they missed on them, which is fair. And Kaiser White is really talented. Like he's made the conversion of safety very well. We'll see what his weight is. I know he put on weight last season, but we'll see what he weighs in at training camp or OTAs. We'll get that for you. But he's good. I'd be shocked if they drafted a linebacker even as high as the second round, because to me, their hope is that Kaiser White works out. TJ Edwards they like. Davion Taylor you want to see like how many they're only going to play two linebackers anyway, so true linebackers. Reddick's really not a true linebacker; he's a pass rusher. So it just would not make any sense to me why they would draft a linebacker early. That would be a stunner.
I disagree with you on that completely.
All right, we'll see.
Well, first of all, TJ Edwards.
I'll give you odds on that one.
Hold on, TJ Edwards has 1 year left on his deal.
I know.
Davion Taylor has, I guess, 2 years left, but has not been able to stay on the field. Kaiser White signed a 1 year contract. If the draft is about your future,
it is,
and you're going to be in this position again next year, and you've already learned for the last 4 or 5 years that your 1 year contracts and your placeholders aren't always what you think they are. And this draft in particular is going to have some really good linebackers in the second round.
They do every year.
I feel like even more so this year. I'd be surprised if the Eagles did not have a linebacker in the second round this year. I think
whoa! Breaking news!
They have to.
No linebacker in the second round.
Hell no. What do you mean how? They have to. They've done it before. It's not that crazy. I mean, Michael Kendricks is
again. I'm not. Again, we talk about this a lot. I'm
a stacked off-ball linebacker like Michael Kendricks.
I just can't see it. I'd be
really.
No. Here's why. You make a fair point on these guys' contracts, but the Eagles nickel and dime and they cheap it out every year with linebacker. This is their belief.
I understand that.
That's the point.
That's why I'm saying not a first round or a second round contract is a cheap contract.
No, but that's high value draft pick. That's high draft currency. That's not the way that they think.
I get that. I still think that they're going to have multiple second round picks when all is said and done and get themselves a linebacker.
And
you got to remember though, Adam, take the context of their defensive scheme. They need to place a little bit more importance of value on off-ball linebacker, because if Jonathan Gannon's going to ask these guys to play a little bit further in his zone looks from scrimmage, then he needs some really good athletes that be able to get in there, get to the hole quickly, get off blocks, and make tackles. Even more so than they did in the past. I agree with you. They got away with the Alex Singletons because everything was funneled outside. They just needed rangy guys who can make the tackle outside the numbers, right? That's not the defense they're playing anymore. So I think they need to invest like they did with Michael Kendricks a many moon ago in a second round linebacker. I have no intel. I'm just just the scheme of their defense and the fact they've suffered for so long trying to cheapen it. I think they've got to come to the realization that they need
First,
this, and I think there's going to be some good talent in the second round for them to get.
yeah.
So,
Look, here's the thing, though. Yes, it's about the future, but they want Davion Taylor on the field. Okay, I understand he's been hurt, nothing but hurt, and they overdrafted him. He should have been a fifth round pick,
mhm.
but they like him. They think he's got a chance. They want. They don't think like you and I do with linebacker. When I say they, the GM
Mhm.
brought up into this business by Banner. They just don't believe, with rare exception. Now they haven't done a first rounder. We know that. They did it
Right.
with Matt McCoy, bust, miss, and they did it with Kendrick's hit.
Yep.
But they've done it once. Excuse me, twice in what, 20 years? It's just not what they do.
Yeah, I think this. I do think the new scheme makes it a different conversation, though. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Let me tell
Oh,
you
no,
something.
look.
I think they need to. I shouldn't say shocked. I should take what you say in high regard here. I shouldn't be shocked, but I get a
Yeah,
feeling like they got to recognize this. And once every 10 years they take a linebacker in the second round, so it's about
hang
time
on, hang
now,
on,
right?
hang on. You're right theoretically. If there's an upgrade there, get him. Absolutely. It's a Bill Polian rule. Bill said he doesn't care who it is. If it's an upgrade, you
Mhm.
draft the guy over. Hey, and if the guy who's starting has a problem with it, tough crap. You draft an upgrade, but they don't think that way at linebacker. They just don't. They never have.
It's so funny because you and I still constantly. People are constantly asking us if the Eagles are going to take Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean in the
Oh
first
yeah,
round. And we can't even come to an agreement if they're going to even take one higher than the third round.
yeah. I want to. We got to put a bet on. We got to bet.
That is so funny. If we
Hang
did a
on. I want
poll
to
right
give you
now,
odds.
if we put an
Okay.
ITB poll out and said, do
Yeah.
you think
Should.
the Eagles will take Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd, right? We're going to get at least 35% of people saying yes. And by the way, it doesn't help
Yeah.
that people who do mock drafts who are,
Yeah.
who have some clout
Yeah.
also are saying that too, even though we know better. So and then and our discussion is like, do you think they'll even take one in the top 62?
Well, it would. I I would applaud them for doing it because it shows some growth and how they think. By the way, if they took one in the first two rounds, it would tell me that maybe we have a sea change here. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't see it. I'd be stunned,
Something
pleasantly
tells
stunned.
me after the draft, I'm going to be saying I should have been listening to Caplan.
I don't. I don't know. I've been brainwashed. I don't know over the years by certain conversations I have with people. Whatever.
Right. All right. Let's move on to the secondary.
That's funny though. Okay.
So they're kind of in the same situation at corner as last year, right? They have Slay, and they need to. They probably want to address this higher than last year with Zach McPherson in the fourth round. I mean, I think they would love to get their hands on. Well, listen. First of all, we know that they really had an affinity for Patrick Surtain last draft, and if they could have gotten him, there's a chance they would have gotten him too. They just couldn't, and they wound up getting
Yeah,
Devontae Smith, which is great.
he
So,
was certain. They liked. From my understanding was they did like
J.C. Horn,
J.C. Horn. They liked him, but
yes.
they had certain higher is the word
Hmm.
we heard.
Hmm.
But the bottom line is they went with whoever's higher on their board was Smith. Okay,
Right.
great. It looks like he's going to be a very good player. Got off to a great start, but it has not solved. They still have not solved the problem opposite Slay. And Slay's 31 years old.
Right.
He's been very good so far. They need to add two corners. Whether it's they're going to draft a corner. We know that. It's just
Hmm.
what rounds it's going to be. Is high. I would say, and a veteran for sure. They have to. Zach McPherson he'll be on the team. They don't know anything about him yet. They don't have a number 2 or number 3 outside corner. Bottom line, end of story. They don't know. They don't. We don't know who that guy's going to be yet.
Yeah.
Guys, when I say guys, excuse me, guys,
Yeah.
not guy. They need 2 guys. By training camp, they have to add 2, and however they do that, it's up to them. What in a veteran, here's a list. Stephon Gilmore's the best guy. George Jenkins. Now he was a cap casualty. In fact, so he actually played decently.
Who?
Janoris Jenkins.
Oh,
Jack
Janoris
Rabbit.
Jenkins. Okay,
Jack Rabbit. Yeah.
I thought you said George Jenkins, and I'm like,
No,
who the hell is that?
no, Janoris Jenkins. Actually, I'm sorry, he changed his name to Jack Rabbit. My bad.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah,
He actually changed it legally, right, to Jackrabbit?
He did. He's made a lot of money.
Oh man,
Gosh.
yeah, he has.
Chris Harris, when he had Greg on to do the free agent corners, he has to be an inside corner. They don't need one, so that you scratch him off. Kyle Fuller, play
Mhm.
inside or outside, not a bad player. Trey Waynes was injured last season. He's not old. AJ Boye is a third corner. That doesn't work. Xavier Rhodes is near the end of his career.
Yeah.
31 years old. Mackenzie Alexander is not a bad one. Joe Hayden's near the end of his career. So there are actually other veterans. They're going to add
Mhm.
a veteran at some point by training camp, maybe. Could be next week, could be tomorrow. But by training camp, I fully expect them to add a veteran. Who that
Yeah.
is, we don't know. Steven Nelson. I know we got to ask ITV questions. I'll just address it here. From Jeff Greenbaum. No one ever. Why are people reasonably satisfied with Steve Nelson? I don't know who these people are. I couldn't name one person who's satisfied with Steve Nelson. Um, he was very average. They had to protect him because he's a tough physical guy, smart guy, don't run that well. He also not real big physically. He'd be best used as a third corner.
Yes.
So to me, they're looking to upgrade, and that's why we fully expect them. If the corner's there, if they don't trade up, if the right guy, if Stingley's their guy, whoever it is, they're taking him.
Yeah,
That's
the
it.
complication is that if they take a corner in the first round, they're going to want to play him. And
Sure, but they
it's
they
hard
need
to
a
sign
veteran
a guy
backup.
right now, right? Because
Yeah.
guys right now are still looking to start in certain places.
Sure,
And
sure.
yeah,
Which you make a good point because if they haven't signed that veteran by the draft, obviously they'll spend a first round. That guy's got to play, but they still need a veteran.
hmm
You want to have someone if Slay gets hurt or this first round pick corner gets hurt, assuming it goes that way, which we fully expect, barring something surprising, even a
hmm
second rounder. But that guy's got to play. You have to have an insurance policy. You can't. They don't have anyone else that can go in there play. They can
right,
say all they want about the Tay Gallons of the world. Come on, they got
right,
to be serious. Let's
right.
go.
So yeah, so we've been getting some questions, and I know some people hit me up. Maybe there's some reporting out there that the Eagles are like really in on Stephon Gilmore, and all I know is that's something I kind of looked into recently.
Okay.
Um, and I did not get the vibe that there was something like hot going on there. There was something really brewing. Like I think the Eagles have probably checked in like they do on almost every
Yeah.
free agent at positions of need, and maybe that's why their name has been out there in some reports. But as of the last time I checked, and I'm not going to slam the door on anything. It's a good corner, and the longer guys are out there, the more quote unquote affordable they might become. But
Sure.
again, I think it's tough to sign a guy like that who probably wants to start, especially with his credentials, and then knowing you might draft a guy in the first round. But I won't slam the door on it because I haven't heard that there's that no way, no how. I'm just saying like I know there were reports out there that the Eagles are among just a couple of teams that are really in on it, and I didn't get the vibe like whoever's in these reports that they're all racing to get Gilmore. That the Eagles are hot on the tails there. So I know we've been asked about it. That's just not the sense I got.
Okay, but they're going to add a veteran by
No,
training camp.
they're going to add a core. Yes,
They don't have a
absolutely,
choice.
absolutely.
They really need, if we're being honest, they need to add two because they just don't have any experience opposite Slay right now. They need someone who could go in and play.
Yeah.
And as you said, if they take a rookie corner, that guy's got to play. But they need a veteran in case somebody gets hurt, and that's the corner position.
All right. Let's look at safety. They need, let's see. So they brought back Anthony Harris. They have Marcus Epps. So right now, those would be your two starters. Kavon Wallace would be your third. He's not somebody that the organization has felt like has merited or fulfilled the fourth round pick. Although a fourth round pick is always hit or miss anyway. But they clearly haven't gotten enough from him, or else they would be playing him. So that's another position where they could use two bodies, at, and that they're not overly deep at. So am I missing any other safeties? I think that's it, right?
No, they got the Maiden kid who played at Alabama, but
Yeah, Jared Baden. Right.
he's just a
Right.
special teamer. Now,
Right.
Epps, you'd like to see him. I think you and I know this. We've talked to other teams about him, and they like his tape. He's
Yep.
been a nice story. Claimed off waivers years ago. Kavon Wallace to me is just a backup. He's not going to start here. He's just not. I just don't think it's going to happen for him
Yeah.
unless he blows up in training camp and you go, "Wow, I
Right.
didn't see this coming."
Right.
He's not shown anyone that he's ready to challenge for a starting job. So it's Harris for this season. It's Epps, but they need a safety. I'd love to see it in the first round, though. It's not going to happen based on
hmm
history. But I'd love to see them do that in the second round, just to get that. But you can't do what they did when they drafted the backup. I mean, the box safety. You got to get a guy who can move, who's
Jaquan
got range.
Jarrett. Yeah, no, they need a multi-dimensional modern day safety. They're not going to
Yeah,
get the guy in the first round. We know it. You can ask us 1,000 times over about what's the kid from Notre Dame's name? Uh, why can't I think of his
Kyle.
name?
What's his face?
Kyle Hamilton,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, they're not
By the
taking
way,
Kyle,
I'll see.
Kyle
I'll believe it
Hamilton.
when I see it on the. It's amazing. Guy has a less than grade 40 time, so all of a sudden he's going to drop like 20 spots. It's not the way it works. We'll see.
Put it
I
this way:
just
the Eagles hope, even though they still wouldn't take him,
yeah.
the Eagles would love to see him drop down to 15 or 16 or
Let,
19
let
with
me
that
let me
40
put it
time.
this way: that you say that, and I'd say this: they're more likely of all the positions they'll never draft in the first round. They're more likely to take a safety
Right, because he'll be on the
prizes than
field
they
the
are
entire
linebacker.
time. Right,
Yeah,
right.
I mean, safety is just. They also look. They've done great in free agency over the years in terms of Roddy McLeod
Hmm.
and Malcolm Jenkins home runs
Yep.
in free agency. But it'd be nice if they develop their own guy. You know.
Yeah. It's amazing. Teron Matthew still out there. He
Oh
must
yeah,
be looking
yeah,
for the right fit. Like
yeah.
we
He hasn't
reported.
got
I
his money.
think. Yeah, like we reported. I don't know. It was sometime last week that the Eagles have discussed him. They've thought about the idea of it, but obviously he's still out there. So a lot of teams are thinking about the idea of signing Teron Matthew, but everything has to match the financials and the
Hmm.
fit, the scheme, and everything like that. So we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah,
Pretty
nothing
much
nothing more updated than that on
nothing.
him.
Yep. Terrell Evans. Someone asked me about him. He's a good player, but he didn't have the kind of year that would earn him a big deal. He's
Right.
out there, but the corner group is way deeper in free agency than the safety group.
Yeah.
Ronnie Harrison of the Browns is a good player. He's more of a they use him in big nickel. He's a good player. He's just
I like him. Yeah, he's a
big
good
guy.
player.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got good size. Had some injuries, but boy, I'd love to see the Eagles draft. I don't know why I care about this, but for some reason I do. I just when we review this particular team, I'd like to see them finally get it right at safety of their own guys
Hmm.
and develop that guy because that's your linebacker. We know it's their philosophy, but I don't know it's a philosophy not to address it early. Okay, fourth round's not early enough. That's a high end backup lawn starter.
Right.
But man, it would be nice to see a safety developed here that is got range and can move and can make plays. Man, when's the last time they drafted their own guy other than Dawkins, obviously? But I'm talking the last 15, 20 years.
Oh, we
You
have this
think,
conversation. I guess well, what's his name? Why can't I think the kid from Colorado? Who they wound up not re-signing to a second
Michael
deal. He
Lewis,
was
right? Third
Michael
rounder.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Right. But after that,
Jeez, is
a
that
guy that
bad?
they
That bad? Jeez.
drafted and developed into even a good
Yeah.
starting caliber safety.
Can't
Man,
think. I know people
man, oh
will,
man.
will let us know, but I don't. I can't think of any where I go. Oh, yep, that guy was a stud. I just don't see it.
No, I mean, I guess Nate Allen was not bad. He just got beset by
Who's now?
injuries. But even
Tell us.
then, that was that was
Yeah.
that was 10, 12 years ago
I
that they
know he
drafted
was.
him.
I'll tell you what. That one. Now again, he got hurt. You can't blame him for that one.
Right.
Significant. I mean, serious knee injury. He was never the same. Would continue his career, but that was one. Okay, in 2009, 2010.
Yeah,
That
I think they
range.
drafted him in 2010.
Okay.
I mean, that's 12 years ago. That's a
Yeah, I
long
know.
time.
I know. Hmm.
Who have they drafted since then at that position? They drafted Jordan Poyer.
Yeah.
He's become a very good safety for another team.
But
They've
was he a
drafted.
corner when they drafted him?
He was a hybrid.
Okay.
They've drafted the kid Blake Countess. That was like a 6th round pick.
Yeah, who is he? Only one, really in that 16 draft.
Hmm.
Who else? Did they miss anyone in the six? Wentz was not a miss. I mean, just it was weird, but it was not a miss. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
no, it was him. It was Sayamalu. It was Big V, and I forget who was. Oh, didn't they hit a running back in that draft who did not pan out? And I
well,
can't remember
Pumphrey was
now.
17, wasn't he?
No, I know. I thought there was somebody. Smallwood, was he from that draft?
Yeah, that was okay. What would you call Wendell Smallwood? A semi
He,
hit? I mean, he
yeah,
contributed.
yeah. I mean, what was he? A 5th round pick?
Yeah, that's a good call by you. Yeah, that's a You know
Yeah,
what's funny?
he's still in the league, is he not?
Yeah, he was with a bunch of teams in the last couple of years. Washington, Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I forgot the Eagles cut not Darren Sproles, Ryan Matthews, both former Charger.
Right,
Ryan
right.
Matthews.
Actually, wow, Smallwood got drafted ahead of Big V. He was 153rd. Big V was 164th, both in the 5th round.
Think about if they don't have Big V. I don't know if they win the Super Bowl. Think about that.
How about no, they definitely don't. I mean, I
Unbelievable.
don't know who they play at left tackle, but yeah, they probably
Matt,
don't.
the great Matt Tobin.
No, yikes,
They
yikes.
actually traded him
No, I
to
actually like
Seattle.
Matt Tobin. Good dude.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
they did trade him. They traded him. Wait, was Dennis Kelly still on the team? No, he would have been gone, right?
He was
He was traded that offseason for DGB.
training camp, and I was there that day. Oh my gosh, that was the craziest thing. Because I was with a lot of people. I thought the Eagles fleeced Tennessee and it went up there. I just thought like Beckham's a second round. Dennis Kelly's slow, not athletic,
Yeah,
and my
and he
goodness
still has more
gracious.
touchdown catches than DGB and since the trade.
Oh, is that right? Did Dennis Kelly he caught a couple?
Yeah,
Or one?
he has like 2 touchdowns, doesn't
Does
he?
he? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way.
Anyway,
So yeah, no, I would call it Wendell Smallwood because a 5th round pick has like what, like a 5% chance of making it in the NFL or being a hit, and he's been on 4
yeah,
teams. I mean,
serviceable.
he's
Right.
played. He's still in the league right now, I believe. I forget who he signed with, but he was with somebody. He was with
He
Washington
was with
last year.
yeah, and Pittsburgh over there. But I forget. Well, before we get out of here, here's a great name. We've never
Okay.
mentioned this guy, this quarterback. Do you remember the immortal McLeod Bethel Thompson?
I do remember the immortal McLeod Bethel Thompson. Now, I could not tell you what college he went to,
I have no idea.
but I
I'm just
remember
the
McLeod
name.
Bethel
What
Thompson.
a name! What a name!
Oh, I still remember the excitement over who's the guy they had last year in camp from Georgia Tech?
Oh, he's never made it. Oh,
Jamie something was it or Newman?
Jamie, good call, Jamie Newman. Hello,
Jamie
Newman. Yeah,
Newman. I remember he was going to push Joe Flacco for that number 2 job.
that was complete
Oh God,
nonsense. Yeah,
yeah, it was nonsense.
he had a good arm. And that was it. And I'd have to look this up. I don't remember him being in training camp with anybody.
No, I don't think he ever signed after he was with the Eagles.
It's unbelievable. I mean, was he that bad? Jeez.
I think
Guess
you
so.
just answered your own question.
I know. I guess. God damn. It's a quarterback-driven league, and you can't get this. Jeez, poor guy.
I mean, his
Anyway,
tape was not very good. So I
apparently,
mean,
he
yeah.
wasn't drafted. Yeah, man.
All
I'm just
right.
looking. I'm just real quick. I'm just looking at these guys. Doug Peterson's first year of this roster.
Mhm. Well,
Man, there's some great names.
finishing off safety though, they really
Yeah.
do like if they're one injury away, they're like an ankle twist away
I know.
from Kavon Wallace being a starter alongside either Anthony Harris, who's just okay, or Marcus Epps, who we like, but still is not, not like he's a 5-time Pro Bowler or anything like that. So
I'm just fascinated at the waning moments of the show is how they view the safety position. That's what's funny. It sounds crazy. I'm more looking toward. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this position more than any position that in this draft for them. I just cannot wait to see what they do. I don't know. I want to be surprised. I want to see them shock me. Actually, it wouldn't be shocked. It would be slightly surprising if they went as high as the second round for safety.
right.
But the league has changed, man. Cosell and I have had this conversation for years. It's no longer a strong safety here, free safety there. You got to be able to cover, man. You got to be able to move. They need to invest in this position.
Sometimes I think they have like a wheel, like the Wheel of Fortune wheel that they spin, and like they have huge triangles dedicated to offensive line and defensive line and corner, and then the one that says linebacker or safety or like that really it's like when you watch Wheel of Fortune and they have the $5 million one that's like sandwiched between the really large bankrupt ones, and it's all one big triangle. But if you got to get it right in the center of the bankrupt to get that little sliver of the five, that's like linebacker and safety for the Eagles. And if it lands on that, someone like elbows it really quickly and
Well,
moves it over. Nope,
let me ask you this:
defensive end.
if they go safety in the second round, will you finally let them off the hook, or does it have to be the first round?
Well, when you say let them off the hook, what am I supposed to do? Say they were never that they were correct to ignore the position for
No,
15
no,
years?
no, no. But will you be able to breathe
I
a
won't
sigh of relief?
criticize them, of course. I'll be happy.
No, will you be able to go? Finally, enough.
Yes,
They did it. Yeah. Okay.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Got it.
I won't even wait to see if the guy works out. I'll just be it'll be like one half of the process. I'll be like, oh, hey, they actually drafted a safety in the second round.
Okay, what's more likely, you spelling Destiny Vallejo or Z Chatu correctly?
Or,
Because I couldn't get either. If you asked me on the spot, I'm like, I have no idea.
all right.
I actually no, I would have got Chatu because of the interesting last
I don't
name.
know if I would have gotten it. I might have like added an extra T or U or
Right.
miss or
Well, there are
not had
two.
another. Yeah.
Destiny and Vallejo, I never would have gotten it right. I wouldn't gotten it right, but I just one of my favorite all time names.
Yeah, no, that's a
Sorry, I
tough
had to
one.
do it. Yeah.
So what was the other? It's the spelling that right or them drafting a safety in the second round?
Right, exactly.
Me getting the spelling right.
So all right, we'll see, folks. We'll see.
Because look, they can't draft a safety and a linebacker in the second round. That would be like crossing the
They
streams
only
from
have one of
Ghostbuster.
them. Yeah, they only have one pick.
Well, I'm
So.
still assuming they might come out of this thing with 2 second-round
Oh,
picks.
they could. They could,
Yeah.
as you said earlier,
Yeah.
they could trade out and get that second round pick.
Right.
When, but it's going to be a fun draft. It really is. I'm glad they have 10 picks because we have a lot to talk to Greg about and some former GMs we're going to have on in the coming weeks. We've got a nice surprise coming on one. I think it's a guy that people will know who I just talked to over the last weekend.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to get him for you, folks. We try to bring that information. Looking forward to it.
All right, before we leave, I can promise you this as we get back to that safety linebacker conversation. If the Eagles do not draft a safety or a linebacker in the first 2 rounds, no matter how many few picks or no matter how many picks they have, I am going to go so scorched earth on that
Don't.
organization that you
Why?
may have to censor me. All
Yeah,
right,
but
you
why
may
would
have
it
to like
surprise you? But why would it
I didn't say it
surprise
would
you?
surprise me. I'm just saying I am going to have to rip them a new colon or 3
Ouch.
because
But
that would just be the continued malpractice and neglect that I
okay,
just
we're
and I
going to ask
won't
Greg
believe
this.
it if they tell me that just it wasn't their best
Okay.
available player. So
We're going to ask Greg this. What the Eagles are missing. We'll get his opinion on this. What they're missing out on not addressing the safety and linebacker positions like they should. We'll see what he says. Let's get his opinion. He doesn't know we're going to ask it,
sure.
so
I mean, he's
we'll
not
get
a
him all
GM,
wrong.
but I mean, okay, well that's fine. I mean, Greg's specialty is breaking down tape. He'll be the first to tell you he's not a GM, so he doesn't know
No, no,
the
no. But
per
he'll
se the
give you
decision
cover.
making.
But he'll give you what he sees and what today's safeties do.
Yeah,
He sees more tape than any general manager in the National Football League. You got to,
right.
he sees it differently than a lot of the draft people because he works in the league for NFL
Hmm.
Films and he sees more tape than anyone. I know he has opinions on what today's safety is like, what he has to do, and linebacker and all that. I'm curious because I don't know if we've really talked to him about that before. So we'll do it.
I guess not. We have not. Who just won the Super Bowl? I don't even remember the Rams. Hey, they had Eric Weddle.
Brought him out of retirement. He was on his
Yeah.
couch, and look, how about Bobby Wagner? Woo!
Oh, how about that? Man, the Rams
Wow.
they got money somehow, man.
They're running it back and they're spending it right.
All right. We're going to run it back on Thursday morning. We'll have more great stuff on ITB. So, in the meantime, check out our stuff. Check out the website. Check out what we got coming on our platform Football at 4, all the Andrew DeCecco's Draft Dreams, Greg Cosell, the Intel, all that great stuff. All right. As always, we thank you for flying with us. Oh, I forgot to thank our producer, Hunter Brody. He always does a great job. Check out his work on YouTube. His channel is called Sports Talk with Broads, and his website is broadsmedia.com. And as always, we thank you for flying with us and listening to my just rants every week on linebacker and safety. We thank you for all of that here on Inside the Birds.